This episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Blue Bridge Games. For the games and gifts you won't find anywhere else, head to Grand Rapids, Michigan's friendliest local game store, Blue Bridge Games. Blue Bridge Games carries an extensive line of board games, card games, role-playing tabletop games, Magic the Gathering, and more. Stop into their storefront on East Fulton or shop with them online at bluebridgegames.com.
You say you want to watch a drama. You say you want to watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama. Or you can watch it with your daddy.
You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler. So you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa.
Couch Potatoes Unite.
Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it's always darkest before the dawn, but we hang our tragedies on a fence post and we fight on. It's a quote. If you name the character who says it, you get extra credit for identifying the episode in which it is set as well. My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and we're checking out our website, couchpotatoesunite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and the unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU, ! Hopes you've been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always, we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panels and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, Amazon Music, basically wherever you get your podcasts, to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including but not limited to Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Altered Carbon, The Orville, Outlander, Westworld, Fuller House, Schitt's Creek, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Crown, Big Little Lies, Doctor Who, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and Supernatural. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for The 100, Charmed, the American Horror Story franchise series panel, new name. We'll talk about Season 1 of American Horror Stories. The Good Doctor panel will catch up on Season 4. The DCTU series panel will reflect upon Season 4 of Black Lightning. The Call the Midwife panel will catch up on Seasons 5 and 6. And the Star Trek 50 Plus series will discuss Season 1 of Deep Space Nine. We'll be launching new panels covering Killing Eve, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, American Gods, Grey's Anatomy, Cobra Kai, Peaky Blinders, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, A Discovery of Witches, The Hauntings of Hill House and Bly Manor, Titans, and Umbrella Academy. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap, we'll cry bazinga for Big Bang Theory, we'll navigate the witty political satire of Parks and Recreation, we'll become psychos for Psych, we'll go where everybody knows your name with Cheers, we hope you'll be listening when we talk about Frasier, we'll know that's what she said when we talk about The Office, both from the UK and the USA, we'll show off our Kung Fu for Chuck, and we'll debate whether saving the cheerleader actually saved the world by looking at all iterations of heroes. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers, comedy shows, Comic-Cons, game stores, and we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff. This isn't just a line now, because the times are changing. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to our website, YouTube channel, Apple iTunes channel, Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of the outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback, not the kind of feedback that will make us go viral, like maybe undressing in an office. Unless it's happy feedback, but we know the happy stuff doesn't go viral quite as much. Am I right? By the way, we are recording this the day after the Oscars. Today, our This Is Us panel has reconvened around the water cooler following their big 4-part catching up series, which CPU released in 2021, to discuss Season 5 of the hit multi-season romantic family drama that airs on NBC. Specifically, Season 5 aired from October 27th, 2020 to May 25th, 2021, with a total of 16 episodes. To remind the listener with our bit of plot summary, created by Dan Fogelman, the series follows the lives and families of two two parents and their three children in several different time frames. The show's ensemble cast features Milo Ventimiglia, Mandy Moore, Sterling K. Brown, Chrissy Metz, Justin Hartley, Susan Kelechi Watson, Chris Sullivan, John Huertas, Eris Baker, Faith Herman, Lyric Ross, and Asante Black in Season 5. The series follows the lives of siblings Kevin, played by Hartley, Kate, played by Metz, and Randall, played by Brown, known as the Big Three, and their parents, Jack, played by Ventimiglia, and Rebecca Pearson, played by Moore. It takes place mainly in the present and uses flashbacks to show the family's past. Kevin and Kate are the two surviving members from a triplet pregnancy, born 6 weeks premature on Jack's 36th birthday in 1980. Their brother, to be named Kyle, is stillborn. Believing they were meant to have 3 children, Jack and Rebecca, who are white, decide to adopt Randall, an African-American child, born the same day and brought to the same hospital after his biological father abandoned him at a fire station. Randall becomes a successful finance professional and marries college classmate Beth, played by Watson. Kevin becomes a successful actor while struggling to be taken seriously. After lacking direction much of her life, Kate meets Toby, played by Sullivan, in a weight loss support group. Most episodes feature a storyline taking place in the present, contemporaneous to the time of airing, and a storyline taking place at a set time in the past. But some episodes are set in one time period or use multiple flashback time periods. Flashbacks often focus on Jack and Rebecca around 1980, both before and after their baby's birth, or on the family when the Big Three are children or adolescents, and played by 2 sets of younger actors. These scenes usually take place in Pittsburgh, where the Big Three and their parents are born and raised. As adults, Kate lives in Los Angeles, Randall and his family are in New Jersey but relocate to Philadelphia, and Kevin relocates from Los Angeles to New York City and back again. Various other time periods and locations have also served as settings, and some episodes have focused on the earlier experiences of other characters, including Randall's family members. Beginning in the second season, the show also uses flash forwards to show a later time period when Randall's daughter Tess is an adult and an elderly Rebecca is on her deathbed. Today, our This Is Us panel returns, slightly smaller but eagerly anticipating the discussion of this beloved show, given that lives behind the podcast and the general effects of the worldwide pandemic, so to speak, delayed these proceedings. In fact, panelists Kristen L., Spencer, Emily, Kristen T., and Jared returned to their respective seats around the water cooler to resume talk of this intricate family drama with the kind of enthusiasm only a cheer of Big Three can infuse into the proceedings. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of this series through Season 5, that's the guarantee, and may discuss sensitive plot points. So for those of you who have not watched This Is Us and plan to do so at some point, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel! How are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great and so eagerly excited myself to talk about Season 5 of this show that you made me watch once upon a time. Not that show, This Is Us. Are you ready to talk about Season 5 today, lovely panel?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm ready.
Awesome. Well, of course, we can't do that without taking your temperature because, as we know, some shows can get better or worse in our heads or continue their awesomeness or lack thereof, depending upon the story evolution. And so to that end, with the standard CPU character question that changes with each show we do, I actually barely changed this one. Because in my mind, even though these characters evolve elastically through the time periods, they are still at their core, at their essence, very similar, at least from Season 4 to Season 5. So, to remind you, I'd like you to think now back to Season 5, because I know some of you have watched much of the current season, which is 6. Forget about that for now. And think about how you felt watching Season 5 along this character question, which goes like this. Would you say you love this show? It's got the big 3 things you love about your TV dramas: heart, soul, and a heaping dose of family dysfunction. Still, you wouldn't have it any other way. You love all of the characters very much and hope that whatever might have happened in the past, their presents and futures are happy, like Jack Pearson. You care about this show deeply. It's messy and complicated, but you're willing to navigate perceived pitfalls in the premise because it is one of the most well-intentioned television dramas that you have watched in recent years. Plus, it occasionally features the singing of Mandy Moore. like Rebecca Pearson? Would you say what you enjoy most about the show is its ability to seamlessly weave through time periods, highlighting different eras of the Pearson family at seemingly disconnected moments, like young Kevin, Kate, and Randall Pearson? Would you say you enjoy the show well enough? You might even actually be addicted to it when all is said and done. You see it as both healthy and cathartic when it actually acknowledges that even the most seemingly perfect existence or sense of happiness can be negatively influenced by unseen forces such as genetic predispositions or strings of bad luck circumstances, while also giving hope that you can evolve or return from those circumstances. Like Kevin Pearson. Did you start watching in season 2, and even though you felt at a disadvantage coming from behind and in the wake of what is considered to be a stellar first season, you've grown to love this family as much as anyone who's watched it from the beginning, like Miguel Rivas? Do you believe that the show is quite flawed in some aspects, but in others it excels? For example, you're surprised and gratified by the way it highlights race and privilege within the dynamic of one family, which is something new and fresh for the TV landscape, at least after some years. You're also particularly moved by Randall's quest to fuse his biological history with his evolution as a black individual adopted by a white family, and by how each experience both propels and opposes the other, creating strengths and learning opportunities for the character, like Randall Pearson. Would you say there are parts of this series that you really love, such as the comic relief provided by the Toby character, and parts of the show that you really do not like, such as when the show is saddest, during Toby's struggles with depression, for example? In fact, you wish the series would lose some of the dead weight, at least where it makes the most sense to do so, like Kate Pearson. Do you not understand what's going on most of the time, but you still love the family at the show's heart and how it involves the younger generation in the story, past, present, and future? Plus, you appreciate that it acknowledges issues affecting today's young people and how it parallels issues affecting yesterday's young people, like Annie and Tess Pearson. Do you understand what's going on most of the time, but don't understand why the adult characters don't realize how good they have it sometimes, which makes the discussion around privilege all the more timely and equally frustrating? Also, the through line of dad jokes is so lame, though admittedly a comforting guilty pleasure, like Deja Pearson. Do you think that the show is okay, though you wish it had more comedy and less drama? Still, there are parts that keep you coming back, like the sincere love between two people of a certain weight class, which often does not get depicted on television for anything other than laughs, and the struggle or happy journey to care for a baby with special needs, as well as a nuclear family that does not represent the traditional definition of same, like Toby Damon. Did you start watching at the end of season 4 because you were surprised by how the show takes bold risks, such as depicting a teenage father accepting responsibility and caring for his young child, though you also believe that some issues might be overly idealized and not as real as they could be, like Malik Hodges? Are you wary of the show and some of its problematic characters? Oh sure, some of them have heart, but some of them can almost be dangerous. And while that is true to life of people and humanity, it's also not something you'd readily choose to watch over the other TV offerings available, no matter what kind of ratings or polls this series gets. In fact, you'd like to be able to pursue your own TV watching dreams rather than fall in with the crowd of people who love this show. It's not all that in the end, and you're going to watch what you want to watch, like Beth Pearson. Or you could take or leave this show. You have a special affection for Kevin, who will not give up on anyone, no matter how life gets. But for you, life is more than this family or its future. And while you're prepared to check on them from time to time, you feel no compulsion to keep an appointment to watch this series, like Nicholas or Nikki Pearson. Who would like to start? Well, don't all jump up at once. Okay, great. Thanks.
I'm sticking with what I said before.
What is your name?
Jack and the Big Three.
What is your name?
Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Emily.
Hi, Emily.
It's been a while since I've done one of these.
I guess so.
Yeah, I am sticking with Jack and the Big Three.
The young Big Three.
I love the show. The young Big Three.
Yeah.
I love the show. It's great. I love the different dynamics that it shows, like Jack, and then I love how it weaves the timelines together. I've said it from the beginning. Why change now?
Fair enough. Welcome back, Emily.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Kristen T.
Hi, Kristen T.
And I am going to stick with part of mine. So I am still definitely a Jack Pearson. I absolutely love this show. I feel these characters and think about them when I'm not watching the show, almost like as if they were people I knew. And I really don't see many flaws with it, which makes me kind of an idealist like Jack. So I really love that. My one difference this time is, as I was listening to the descriptions of the characters, part of Kevin's kind of resonated with me. The part where Kevin, it said, you see the show as both healthy and cathartic when it actually acknowledges that even the most seemingly perfect existence or sense of happiness can be negatively influenced by unseen forces. I feel like in this particular season, we see a lot of that with the characters, and that really rings true in the stories in multiple timelines. And without diving too much into those later, I will add just a touch of Kevin to my perspective of Jack.
All right. Welcome back, Kristen T.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kristen L.
Hi, Kristen L.
Hi. So let's see, last time I was Jack, and for season 5, I'm going to keep sticking with Jack. I still love the show. I watch it the next morning. I don't watch it in real time, so I don't have cable. But I just love these characters. I've loved season 5 even more. I can't wait to see where it goes in season 6, and I'm excited to talk about everything today. So sticking with Jack.
All right. Welcome back, Kristen L. You were very amazed that you had gone down to one character last time.
And I'm going to stick with it. I agree with what Emily and Kristen T said and how they added other characters into Jack. But while I do agree with them, I'm going to keep breaking my rule and stick with just one character.
What a rebel. Welcome back, Kristen L.
Thanks.
Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. That's what I say.
Hi, Mr. Truman.
Yes, that's exactly right. For me, good to see everybody. I'm Jared.
Hi, Jared.
I will put it out there that I will always be, at the heart of it, I will be a solid Jack. But the last time I mentioned that I'm open and realistic to the fact that Rebecca comes out sometimes. I mean, because in reality, nothing is technically perfect. So I will say that I'm open to I was open to Rebecca being the occasional coming out occasionally. But I will say we'll talk about this more in the rest of the podcast. But I would say that by that last episode, I was more open to the fact that there are definitely some issues that I have a problem with. But still at the heart of it, I'm a solid Jack. Rebecca comes out when there are moments that I'm like, what the heck's going on here? But just like a good mom or a good dad, I still love you and I'm still Jack. So that's all there is to it.
Well, those are some complicated emotions that we'll break through and parse out. But welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess that leaves me, Spencer T, and that wasn't supposed to be a rhyme at all. Anyway,
that's what you get for trying to instigate. Hi, Spencer.
I wasn't even trying to instigate anything there, which is probably a first.
Yes.
Disclaimer, Kristen T is my wife, and she is wonderful, and we watch this show together religiously. Try to catch it live every week, and if we don't, we stay on social media so we don't get any spoilers. If you haven't watched season 5, this is going to be a lot of spoilers for you. I am definitely a Jack. Usually I sprinkle other things in there, but this show is just so good, and I'm going to stick with a single Jack.
All right. Welcome back, Spencer. And of course, my name is Kylie. I both participate and moderate this panel. That is often the case. Last time I was Jack. This time I am still Jack. There's really no reason for me to change either. I mean, I think I inhaled this season. Now, it's been a couple months because life behind the podcast, but I'm pretty sure I watched this season in 3 days. And that's basically because I had the time to do it in 3 days, but I watched it in 3 days, which is by far the fastest that I have inhaled any of these seasons. And I am still left wowed each and every time. I think this season ends in kind of a funny spot, but not necessarily a bad one. It didn't leave me feeling like, wow, but it also, I still want to know what's going on with them. And I love the show at this point. I'm 5 seasons in. That's not going to change. And so we're going to talk about season 5 and why that doesn't change for seemingly anybody on this panel. There's going to be lots of praise, I'm sure, although some people had complicated emotions, but let's get right down into it. Season 5, I'm going to read a talking point to cover the big events, of which there were a lot. So in season 5, the show incorporated COVID-19, the George Floyd murder/manslaughter and resulting protests, Kevin and Madison cohabitating, then hooking up, then getting pregnant with twins, then getting engaged, then breaking off that engagement as the wedding is just about to happen. Randall and Kevin working through long-standing issues, Randall attempting to find new therapy to come to terms with his life and identity, Randall having pointed conversations about race with his siblings, Rebecca's Alzheimer continuing to progress, with Miguel, Kevin, and Randall continuing to vie over who is taking better care of her, Kate and Toby finding that the passion is irregular in their marriage, especially after Toby is laid off, and Kate obtains a job as a teaching assistant, teaching blind children music, Kate and Toby adopting Haley, which they also met the birth mother, Tess asserting her teenage independence and discussing gender spectrum issues with her parents, as well as dating a non-binary classmate with which Beth struggles, Malik interns for Randall. Then we also see the young big three go through puberty, their teen years. We learn about Kevin and Sophie's marriage life when they're really young. We learn more about Kate's relationship with that awful Mark kid who I do not like, and the fact that she had a prior abortion. We learn about how Jack and Rebecca this season really spent time on how the parents influenced each of the children, particularly Kevin, but each of the children. And then we also learn about Randall's birth mother in a very poignant episode. Not to mention the fact we see a few flash forwards where Rebecca is referenced and we find out Deja's in medical school and the whole 9 yards. So that is the jam-packed 16 episodes in just a broad nutshell. So let's have at it. What did you like? What, if anything, didn't you like?
They packed a lot into 16 episodes.
This is the facts.
Yeah.
I will say I thought they handled the COVID thing extremely well. They didn't slap you in the face with it, because we were already all being slapped in the face with it. They made reference to it. They showed that it was part of the world, but it wasn't the world to them as it was to the rest of us. So I think they handled that extremely well.
I think so.
I love
too.
I wish that they wouldn't have included the pandemic in this show. I get how it made sense for storylines with Kevin and Madison. It fit perfectly. Like, they had to cohabitate and all this. I get it. But oddly enough, my mom, who loves this show, she's been a huge fan since the very first episode, she stopped watching it when they included the pandemic because it was just too much of a reminder. And, I'm kind of in agreement. It wasn't my favorite that they included it. It would have been nice to have that true escapism with the Pearsons, with them not having it in there, but it didn't keep me from watching it like some people.
But if they hadn't have had that, we'd be watching season 5 now instead of season 6 now, because they wouldn't have been able to film.
Yeah, I could see that, but other shows were able to film too without including the pandemic in their storyline.
I don't know. I watched a lot of shows, and a lot of the shows that I watched included it at least for a couple of episodes. But maybe there were other ones that I didn't see. But I definitely feel like there were a lot of shows that did it, and I didn't understand. I mean, I understood kind of, but at the same time, I wished a lot of the shows would have softened down on it a little bit. But they had a reason. They had a purpose. Not that I necessarily agreed with all of it, but it was a reason.
I liked the way they incorporated it. I'm a big Grey's Anatomy fan, and I hated that so much of last year's season of the show was so immersed in that, and I appreciated the commentary on how healthcare workers are dealing with it. But I liked that in This Is Us, it was like, okay, we're just living our lives. Like, yeah, it's happening, and we have masks on every once in a while, and this is kind of influencing the story, but it's not the focus. It's not weighing down on you the whole time of oh my God, we're still talking about the pandemic.
Yeah, Emily, I agree with you, and Spencer as well. I feel like the way it was touched on, but never the focus, was, to me, it made a lot of sense, because This Is Us has always been very, very timely with what's going on in the world. I mean, even from something as simple as the popularity of Hamilton the musical, to the George Floyd protests, to the pandemic, they've always referenced or touched on what's happening without always making the storyline completely about it. And so I did appreciate that, because a lot of shows, it just seemed like it never really happened, and that seemed a little out of place to me for times. But I also appreciated with This Is Us was some of their clever ways of filming to keep the characters in bubbles. Like the one episode that was almost entirely in cars. That was a really interesting and creative way, I thought, to tell story, to make art. And I wonder if we would have gotten that bit of creativity without without COVID.
Yeah, I will have to echo the ones who were more in support of it than less. I'd heard about the fact, this was one of the things that got spoiled for me, I'd heard about the fact that they had incorporated the pandemic into the show, but I completely agree with what Kristen T just said. This show has acknowledged the outer world outside the nonfiction world since the beginning, and I think it would have been out of place for it to ignore something so big, including, and especially with the dialogue around race that happens within this family, for them not to acknowledge the George Floyd, BLM, and everything else that was happening around and somewhat spurred on by, but really just inflamed by the pandemic and the circumstances within it. I mean, I just think they had to, if they'd have ignored it, it would have felt out of place and weird to me. So, and I do think they didn't meditate on it. And I do love that episode when they're literally waiting for the birth mother to have Haley. I forget the birth mother's name, but Toby's out in the parking lot, and then there's this other guy who's waiting on his wife who has COVID-19. She's immunocompromised. She's in the hospital. I mean, yes, these are real life circumstances and we wanted to run away from it, but at the very heart of this show is how it dramatizes the human condition and what the human condition in society is dealing with at the moment. And there are other shows to escape from the pandemic. Watch more superheroes. Okay, that's just my thing. So
yeah, don't get me wrong. I like how they incorporate everything else that was happening in the nonfiction world, as you called it. They did that with the writing was just beautiful and how they approached all those topics. So I'm not saying I don't like them to incorporate what's happening in the real world. I'm just specifically talking about the pandemic. But just because I was tired of all my favorite shows also incorporating it too, it would have been nice to see one that didn't have it in it. But everything,
I know we've mentioned before how many times we would like to be in the writer's room, but it would be really interesting to hear how some of those conversations went as they had storyboarded so much of the show. And then obviously, who would have predicted that these sorts of things would have happened? And it'd be really interesting to hear those conversations on how they incorporated what was going on in the wider world into the plot.
I think that's one of the things that makes this show feel so real, in a sense, is that they are within, to take from the superhero world, they're on our Earth. You know, it feels like this could be happening out there. It never feels like it's scripted TV. It doesn't feel like it's just another story. It feels like this could really be somebody's lives. And I think that's something that makes it one of the better shows I've ever seen.
And they really didn't meditate on it. I mean, it was maybe one episode of panic around it. And then, it just gradually became built into the structure of their blocking, their costuming. It was a thread. Beth lost her dance studio, for example, because there wasn't enough revenue to keep it open. But it's those bits of reality that they pull into the story. I think that's what makes it resonate so much. This is not really an escapist show, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't watch This Is Us and think, gosh, I'm escaping my own life watching these lives. It's more like I'm empathizing with their lives because I relate to them from my life. So I guess that's the distinction that I'm drawing in my brain. So we spent a lot of time on the pandemic. What else did you like or not like?
I liked the way that they started talking about Kate's Alzheimer's in this season. Really, I know I talked about it back in the season 4 recording, but my favorite episode was in this season, and it was the episode where they show her. She goes to the store to pick up the cake or the flowers for Thanksgiving, and it weaves so seamlessly between 3 different time periods. It was one of my all-time favorite episodes of television ever. It was beautiful. So stunning.
Just to clarify, you're talking about Rebecca.
Yes. Who did I say?
Kate.
You said Kate.
Oh, I meant Rebecca.
I knew who you meant.
Yes.
Just clarifying for clarification's sake. Yeah, I agree. They're handling that beautifully. It would be easy to do that in a different way, but they found exactly the right tone.
Yeah, they really took the idea that Alzheimer's, it kind of means you're experiencing time out of order. That's a phrase that we heard a lot when my grandma was battling through that a couple years ago, and the way that they did it was again, stunning. Their writing, I cannot get over how incredibly beautiful it is. And that episode was very emotional for me. But it was, Mandy Moore played it absolutely perfectly. I am so impressed with her through this whole health journey of Rebecca's. She's just played it perfectly.
I've seen other shows, I think, really not negatively portray Alzheimer's and that whole journey, but like do it in such a caricature type of way. I mean, like Grey's Anatomy kind of does it a little bit. And I think to see how it not only affects Rebecca, I don't know why I keep saying Kate, affects Rebecca, but also everybody around her. I think that's the most realistic part of it, is that it really does. It's not just a disease that affects the person that has it. It's everybody around them, and I think they're doing it so well.
I think so too, and I think it's obviously a major driving point of the story in this season, but it does, the way it's portrayed, you're still seeing how the lives of everyone in the family still have to go forward, though Rebecca's experiencing this, and you see her struggle alongside of the struggle of the others who are trying to care for her the best they can in the midst of their own difficulties. And you really do see the love of the family for each other through, and especially for her through this. And it's pretty beautiful.
That was a beautiful episode. There were, I think, in terms of the most resonant episodes, that's in my top 3 of this season, but my favorite one is the one that delves into Laurel, which is Randall's birth mother's backstory. I don't know that I have cried more at an episode of television in recent history than I did at that one. That one socked me in the gut. I'm thinking, this is just like when I think about the MASH series finale, that part. When I get to that part, I'm just thinking about it and I'm welling up because it was so powerful, and what a twist. Like, what a knock you on your sock, amongst the many they have on this show. But what a knock you on your socks twist. Like, I was not...
How many years did we spend thinking that Laurel did not live past that moment?
Correct.
Yeah.
5 by my reckoning.
Yeah.
I still remember when it happened, and Kristen and I just both turned at each other and couldn't speak with our mouths just wide open. It's like, after, with most TV shows, after you've watched them for a while, you kind of see the writers' formulas and you know what to expect. They have a very hard time surprising you. This show constantly, as we've said, some of us are watching season 6 with no spoilers, they still manage to surprise me. And I watch a lot of TV, just like Kylie does. And the fact that they're still able to surprise us is a real testament to how brilliant the writing is.
And it's organically a surprise. So
Yes.
you would think to yourself, after all this time, there was no clue that Laurel was still out there for at least as long as she was, because she does pass away before they discover that she was alive longer than they said. But then the story that they created around that moment was so beautifully plausible and genuine, and they touch on the emotional beats. Like Randall is struggling with, why did nobody tell me? Did William actually know this and lie to me, and all this other piece? And the gentleman that she fell in love with from down south, whose name I cannot remember right now. Hi. That's right. Hi. That's right. He tells Randall, no, your father told you what he knew. He told you the truth that he knew. And then leading into that gorgeous scene in the lake. Which is the part that's going to make me cry. It's just it was so powerful that I cannot think of many, and I'm not being hyperbolic when I say this, I can't think of many television episodes that had a bigger impact on me than that one.
There are so many elements to that episode where they touch on racism not just being a black and white thing. They touch on the fact that secrets are kept within families. The family dysfunction is in every family. There's no such thing as the perfect family. They hit so many notes, and they hit them perfectly. The timing, everything.
I can still picture in my mind's eye that moment where they connected in the market, High and Laurel. Just I can hear the music in that scene is just one of the most powerful pieces of acting without words I have ever seen in my life.
I like the way too that how they set that all up, where you meet Hai and you see him with his granddaughter, presumably, and they're cooking, and then you're just like, what is this? Because It was kind of so out of left field that you're like, I don't know what's going on, and then it's that a testament to their brilliant writing again. They bring it right back around, and it's just, that episode was so incredible. So incredible.
One of my all-time favorites, I would say, of the show overall.
I agree.
Mine as well.
One of my favorites.
I like the way that they introduce new characters in a standalone fashion and make you wonder what the hell is going on, as opposed to softly introducing them through one of the main characters that we already know. It really is a very different way of doing it. And the first time they did it shocked everybody. And we were all like, what have you done? You've ruined This Is Us. And then, like you said, they bring it around and you're just left going, wow.
I like that it's such an organic way to mesh all of these stories together, because that's what This Is Us is that it's this experience and it feels so much like real life. Like, you wouldn't just casually meet somebody like, oh yeah, this is my friend. No, these people have their own lives going on. So it just makes so much sense to introduce those characters and those storylines in the way that they do it. I mean, it's the same, like Kylie was saying, about the fact that, like, we were finding out the stuff about Laurel essentially the same way Randall would have found out about it. It was just as it was happening. And I think that's why this show it resonates with everybody so much, is that it just feels so real.
And that callback, even thinking about the early season 1, when Randall's on the journey to find William. Mm-hmm. And we thought that was cut and dry, because we've seen the whole story with William, and we've seen their connection and his connection with Randall's family. And then the fact that not only did they knock our socks off with the surprise about Laurel, then we get to go on yet another journey with Randall, the storytelling is masterful and the acting is masterful. Sterling K. Brown. It was a treat to be able to explore that and to ride along, so to speak, in the car. I remembered recently catching up on this season summaries that Hai has given Randall the keys to Laurel's farmhouse. And I also remember that I don't think we've come back to that yet, unless I'm incorrect.
Not in season 5.
I wonder if there might be a bit more to the story coming.
Yeah, I could see maybe, like, semi-future prediction. I could see them in a flash forward, having maybe Randall and Beth retire to that house or something. I think Kristen's right. I think it's going to come back around in season 6 in some way.
You would never show something if it isn't important.
That's right.
Yeah, that they're so intentional. That was just such a big thing. There's no way it's just done.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the show's amazing feat in a nutshell, is that even though it does weave in and out of time periods decades apart and gives us chunks of information that don't come together until later and reward you for watching until later, everything still feels so three-dimensional. I don't know many shows that handle disjointed timeline stories, including our beloved superhero shows, as well as this show does. It's very fascinating, and I hope that, knowing that season 6 is the last one, I hope these writers stay together and come up with something else, because I think I would watch it in a heartbeat. But I'm not.
And not only are they working with all these different timelines, they're working with 4 different casts, all playing the same characters that have to have similarities, continuities, a certain look, mannerisms, and they're carrying it and playing it off so very well.
It's very well coordinated. Whoever's doing that is
so
great.
Good. I love the way that it feels like they wrote out the whole plot and then they just kind of like threw it all over the room and then picked it back up and we're like, okay, we have to, that's kind of what it feels like. Yeah. And so it's like, you know that they know exactly where everything's going to go. You can just tell by watching it that they have it so well laid out. Other shows that jump in between time periods, it feels like they do it just for the gimmick and then they don't think ahead to how that's going to impact things in the future or how it impacts things from the past. And that's what I love about this show so much, is that it's just so well laid out and so planned.
Do you ever think that maybe they have one of those walls with all of the pictures and the words up on and the strings connecting and the pins everywhere?
They gotta have something like that. Yeah.
That's exactly what I picture.
Yep, me too.
Well, some of the proof behind that is in some of these flashback scenes where you're dealing with young actors that have appeared since season 1. They have to have filmed some of the stuff that we are seeing now in this season 5 that we're talking about, and you will see in season 6 as you catch up. They have to have filmed some of this stuff way back in the beginning, because those kids, they don't stay that young for 6 years, or 7 years as it will be by the time we're all
It
said
almost
and done.
makes you wonder if they filmed like a big chunk of it in chronological order, and then this is just a testament to the editors. That's kind of what I almost wonder too, is like, at least particularly the young kids, I'm sure they filmed a lot of it in chronological order, and now it's the editors that are just incredible.
Imagine somebody saying, okay, let's take this scene again, but from this character's angle or this character's perspective. I know it can't be this way because that's not how sets work, but I almost imagine it's like theater in the round, because that's how we watch it. We'll watch a scene from one viewpoint, and then we'll see the same scene later from a character who was there, but maybe minor or off to the side from their viewpoint, and it's an entirely different story. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
totally no spoilers, but they did that just this season. This last episode, I was like, did I watch this one already? And they did exactly that. Beautiful.
Yep.
Stunning.
And they actually end up having done some filming. They actually end up filming that scene multiple times with different cameras on different people, having to run it again and run it again. It's a lot of work that they put in on this. This is no easy feat. They are really working their socks off to give us some of the best TV we'll ever see.
Is the time capsule episode in this season the time capsule that they find at the cabin? I think it is.
I think it
is.
Might be.
Where they
I don't remember reading it, but
why didn't? Oh, it might not have been in it might not have been in those plot summaries, but I feel like
the time capsule episode was season 4, episode 14.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Google.
Well, now I'm getting all confused. That's funny. Because for some reason that's graphically resonating through my brain, them playing the tape of Jack's
So then
voice.
I'll just jump in here and say that what a lovely bunch of analysts you guys are. I feel like I'm sitting here in a class listening to all the professors discuss all the intricacies and the beauty of this show. I love it, and I resonate with everything you guys are saying. Definitely agree on every level. I would definitely say, though, for me, that when I love something fully, I still look at it as critically as I can, in a good way. And so, like, as I was looking at some of these episodes you were talking about, I always asked myself, is this the way that it could really happen? Is this the way? And I want to think of it as if it would be something that I could relate to. But then I realized the idea is that there's so many people out there that have different stories and they have different circumstances in their life that it doesn't have to necessarily be something that makes complete sense to me, but recognizing that this is exactly the way that it can happen with somebody else. And when I think about like the idea that William could have watched Laurel and believe that she was dead and then go away and then she's just gone. And there's no word, there's no nothing, 000, and it seems so. I mean, it makes sense what they're saying. I mean, it makes sense kind of looking at it, but in another sense, I'm like, how is it literally possible that there was no way for any communication after all those years before he died to have some sort of connection again? But I guess that would have changed the whole story. But again, I still love it. I just think it's interesting to think of the different pieces and wonder, why did this happen? Why did they made it this way, obviously, to kind of keep the story going the way that they had it there. But yeah, interesting.
Well, I think that's because, and I'm gonna toss something out for consideration, especially when it comes to Randall's family and Randall's birth parents or biological parents. You know, a lot of the talk within this show, which I appreciate so immensely, is around culture and cultural differences and understanding the shades and nuances, not just of outright prejudice and bias, but how the system basically has screwed people of marginalized identities because of how history has gone about it. And so when you compare, so you look at, say, Jack and Kevin's history, they have alcoholism, they've done some dumb things. You look back through their life, their consequences aren't quite as I mean, they tend to get off fairly easy in the end. And then you kind of look back at Randall's parents, which was in the 60s in Pittsburgh during the Civil Rights Movement. You've got a pregnant woman who was given heroin to deal with birth pains. So he already made a big mistake giving Laurel heroin. And then heroin, if you do OD on it, stops all your systems. So it's very plausible to have believed that. And then at some point when she comes out of that and realizes what has happened, you know, her baby is gone, William is gone, it is she who decides, you know what, I'm not worth, I won't be a good mother to my son. I won't be a good wife to William. I'm helping no one unless I get myself cleaned up. And that's a lot of what is explored in that episode we were just talking about. And I think a lot of it has to do with, you know, they're responding to the cops, the paramedics in the moment that show up on the scene, and they're kind of giving him looks. And they tell this story so subtly that it takes that kind, you have to think of it from that perspective to catch it, is basically what I'm telling you. And so while it might not make sense in the moment, it actually, to me, makes perfect sense within the characters' different perceptions and how they've built the different characters, the choices they make in those moments, and how they respond to those choices as the story progresses. None of it feels out of place. It may not be what I would do, but it certainly is in keeping with sort of the flow of everything that's happened beforehand.
That's well said.
What else do you like or not like? We've talked about some great episodes, but
I want to talk about Kate's relationship with Mark. What a despisable, awful, oily little piece of garbage that kid is.
Yeah, thank you for not putting him on the character temperature question, because thumbs down.
He's not a regular, so he doesn't get the auspices of being a character on the profile. But yeah, finally learned about Mark. Mark is a real tool. You could quote me on that.
Worst.
He is the worst, and you finally get a little bit more of a glimpse into, because Kate has a lot of self-worth issues, but as it turns out, a large chunk of that stems back from Mark. And I just want to punch that guy. And it's
every one of us wanted to punch that guy.
And she showed amazing restraint in not punching that guy when she found him as an adult, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
We all agree. Okay.
Yeah, just... oh, human garbage.
Yeah. I'm glad she got the closure that she needed in the present with that situation for her to be able to really move forward and kind of get the agency back in her life in certain areas that it had been lacking. But I'm glad that we are done with him as a character. I'm so glad he's gone.
Me too.
I was so glad to see that he hadn't got anywhere in life at all. That he was still just a piece of trash.
Yes.
An interesting aspect of that episode, too, and the actress who plays Teenage Kate is absolutely brilliant. So on a side note,
she's amazing.
She's better than regular Kate.
She's so good.
She's my favorite of the teenager generation of characters.
Same.
We just had that conversation in this house last week, how she is by far the best of the teenage actors.
Yes, and it's not to say that the other two are not amazing, because they are, but she's like amazing plus plus plus. But in any case, when you realize the weight she was carrying, metaphorically with everything she went through, and how much of it she hid for the sake of Rebecca and the sake of Kevin during that time, it was really heartbreaking. Like, to see, and I feel like the actress told that story extraordinarily well. Because a lot of times when we go through heartache the way that Kate did in that episode, but people around you have heartache as well, maybe what's considered bigger. And not that she didn't lose Jack, because of course she did too. But she didn't burden her mother. She didn't burden her brother. She carried it all. And not that that's healthy, but at all. And I think that did lead to a lot of her struggles later in life. But that storytelling was very, very powerful and very emotional for me, to see her walk that journey and see that actress walking that journey alone. The moment when she's sitting on the table in the doctor's office, for example. The moment when she doesn't go with Rebecca, when she stays home. It just, yeah. there's a lot there.
I like that was a callback too, because we had seen that excursion. I don't remember where they were going when Rebecca wanted her to go with them, but we saw that play out before. And so I like that it gave us a little bit more insight to what was going on. And I love that they do that. They do that all the time, where they show something and it seems so minor and inconsequential. And then later we see how much else was going on. It's great.
Yeah, they often show us the surface and then later pull back the covers and reveal all the nitty-gritty underneath.
So to that nitty-gritty, and since we're on Kate and Toby, now, there is a clear trajectory, and some people have been hitting at some stuff in some places, by which I mean my panel and their season 6 viewing, okay. And Kylie picks up on stuff, so I just want you to say that, but there's clearly a trajectory they're building in this season, and I'm struggling with it already. I don't know what's going to happen to these two, but I'm such a big fan of the Kate and Toby partnership. They have issues, they bring baggage into the relationship, but it feels like it's unraveling a little bit. Not so much when Haley's coming in. They unite for the purpose of bringing in, their adopted daughter and incorporating her into the family. But there's definitely some very key points where Toby is kind of more low than he has been since he was off his medication, and Kate is trying to respond and is somehow ill-equipped to meet his needs. And I just, without spoiling anything, just want to know what you all thought about that.
Well, do remember that we have seen some foreshadowing in the flash forward that goes to what we believe is probably close to the end of the last episode, where Toby is there without a wedding ring and without Kate. So I believe they've kind of given us the trajectory already. We're not sure where that's going to play out and how it gets there, but I think they've already told us where it goes.
Okay. So
we also, though, at the end of the season, see a flash forward to 5 years in the future, and Kate is in a wedding dress again. So we do know that happens. We haven't seen any of that play out in 6 yet.
We've seen a little. So what we're not seeing that is in the season finale of 5, so it's okay to talk about, is that the groom is the teacher that she's assisting at the school, who is English.
And they finally got an actor that could do an English accent in this show.
I think he might actually be English.
The entire 5 seasons is Randall's boyfriend with the worst English accent since Dick Van Dyke.
Okay, but William's boyfriend was Dennis O'Hare, who's not natively English. I think this guy is natively English.
and he sounds it. So
good. Because if he didn't,
he's been on a few shows.
Yeah,
this is one of the few things that I do not understand about This Is Us. I don't fault it, but I don't understand it. There have been now 3 seemingly smaller characters on the show because Madison's mother is also English. It's referenced very briefly. Mm-hmm. And then William's boyfriend, and then Philip, right? Who are English, and I don't know if that's a thing, because everything else on this show is a thing, so is that a thing?
Says the person married to an Englishman. Okay.
Well, exactly.
We live among you, okay? Live with
I mean, we do let them in once in a while,
They've
obviously.
moved to the colonies. It's over now.
That's it. I'm getting my red coat.
They're still slowly trying to...
Wait a minute, that doesn't end well. Never mind.
The Dennis O'Hare thing, I'm completely with Spencer. That was a choice. He made it poorly. It was poorly done. That guy should not have been English. He did not need to be English.
No.
It didn't further the story in any way, and that's why I really had a problem with it. If there was some storyline reason for him doing that, and we've seen it in other shows. We saw it in The Flash with Katie Sackhoff when she did it as Amunet Black. It just, why? It doesn't further the character. It doesn't further the storyline. It just pulls your audience out. At least anybody with an ear for the accent goes, wait, what are you doing? So that one didn't make sense. And that literally in 5 seasons has been my only quibble with this show.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm wondering with Kristen too, if it was intentional, because this show is so intentional. Why would they have Dennis O'Hare do that? Because everybody knows he's not British. So that's why I do kind of wonder, is there some sort of ulterior motive to that? Who knows?
I mean, this writing team is brilliant, but I just think that was an actor's choice, and Madison's mom being English, I think doesn't really matter so much because I don't know how much of her we see between what I've seen in season 6. And then I do think this teacher is English, and the guy who plays him is English in real life. And the fact that he's teaching music at a prestigious school for the blind doesn't, they probably would recruit from England for that. I believed it. He looks professorial. He could be wearing
He may have already been living here.
That's true too.
He's certainly not the stereotypical kind of person you would imagine teaching a bunch of kids, just with his demeanor as they show it so far. Yeah.
So, but it's good. So I trust the show will reward me. But this is the part that this was the funny note that I was alluding to, because I was like, oh boy, I don't even think that their tension was sexually tense. So I'm going to need some ample storytelling landscape devoted to whatever the heck just happened there. I trust the writers, but OMG.
Yeah,
Early
Toby
was one of my favorite. Early Toby was one of my favorite characters. When Toby first came on the scene, his quick wit, his sense of humor was that ray of light that sometimes you needed to cut through the darkness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, he brings an energy to it. I love the whole dynamic of Beth, Miguel, and Toby being like the little club that's not natively Pearson.
Yes.
Yes.
They bring that back
fighters.
every so often, and it's delightful. And I feel like, they probably would never cast Toby off. That's why we see him in the flash forward without the wedding ring and so forth. But at the same time, he does add a nice little counterbalance. I enjoy Chris Sullivan as an actor, and I'm just really weirded out by this turn of events.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Yeah. We'll just have to wait and see.
I don't like that answer at all.
I know.
And we haven't even... I'm up to date, along with the Spencer and Kristen's. And we haven't seen anything yet, so I can't even, no spoilers, but I can't even not give you spoilers, because we don't have them yet.
No.
You
can tell that you can tell it's coming, but they haven't. Yeah. We're still waiting.
Until that finale of season 5, you only could surmise things. I mean, there was no... I mean, other than what Spencer brought up about the scenes at the end with Rebecca when she's presumably on her deathbed, there wasn't anything clearly telling you this is... I mean, especially with the adoption of the child, with Haley, I felt like, maybe this is maybe this is a red herring, kind of like when they tried to trick us into thinking that Randall and Beth were going to break up, which, no, please never.
Right. Best relationship in the show.
That
Beth
is
is just
the
phenomenal.
best relationship in the show.
Yeah.
Their
the
family
only thing
is
I can
infinitely
say,
fun to watch.
is that if it's supposed to mirror reality in any way, I mean, I suppose you need to have somebody breaking up or divorcing or something if you're going to be somewhat realistic. But at the same time, I feel like up to this point, and this is my opinion, but I feel like fighting for your marriage and fighting for your love and all that kind of stuff is super important. Obviously, there's more information to come, but I just feel like with these two, I felt like there was a magnetism and there was a real deep, true sense of love for one another, that they are going to be able to get through this. And then so when that last episode of season 5 happened, it really did hit me hard, because I just feel like they had the fight, they have fight in them. But, as life goes, even some of the most obvious situations, some of the most strongest people go through things, and you can't understand what's going on in the middle of it all, and the feelings and the decisions, and so it is realistic to life. So even though you love them that way, it doesn't always work out that way. I wish it would be different, but let's see.
Yeah, sometimes love just isn't enough.
Oh, this is bleak. And I thought Kevin fulfilled the quotient of unstable relationships.
We haven't talked about it yet.
roller coaster of relationships.
I know, we haven't really talked about Kevin and Madison, and we probably should.
Mm-hmm.
Although I really have to say that it was great for his character. I think here again, Kevin just continues to evolve in some of the most amazing ways and starts to actually have some self-worth in the process, which is that's the mirror between Kate and Kevin, right? They both struggle with their self-worth, though they're coming from a different end of the self-worth spectrum, right?
Right.
But I still, even though she was calmer and motherhood mellowed her out a little bit, I was like, Madison, really? And then then I was kind of buying into it for a little while, like, okay, they could be cute. And then they decided they weren't cute, so.
I was going to say, I think even Kevin thought, Madison, really? I think even Kevin was in that boat. But it was funny seeing that relationship, kind of how they were. It was so interesting seeing how devoted he was to her in that moment, like knowing that she was having his kids and how he was ready to be there. And then he was like, wait, no, I can still be there for the kids. I don't have to be in this relationship.
Although I really appreciated the episode where they ran through all of his exes, reacting to the fact that he was getting married to Madison. That was really funny.
That was hilarious.
That was so funny. Was that the episode where Sophie sees him on a billboard?
Yes.
Or like a magazine cover or something?
Yeah.
Like, really?
Magazine cover. It was a magazine cover. People, I think it was, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also have to say, Justin Hartley, hearts. Not hearts, but hearts. He gets hearts. Mm-hmm. Because he's Kevin Hart, just anyway.
While we don't know the end game for Kevin yet, I personally think that they could have worked out. I think that everybody's story is a little bit differently, and knowing what you want is really important. And Madison made a decision that was very important for her, and I respect that decision completely. But I also think that there would have been good potential for those two, because there are arranged marriages out there. Love does grow, but if it starts with a lie, you don't want to. That's not a good place to start. So she was being honest. She helped him see probably what he needed to see, and so you learn a lesson either way, and you grow and you learn. So ultimately, I think this is going to make Kevin become more of the person that he wanted or needed to be in the future.
Well, there are lots. I was going to say there are lots of examples of parents who don't stay together but make amazingly good friends and co-parent very well. There are a lot of relationships that really don't exist well romantically but do better platonically. And I think that's where this show lands with Kevin and Madison. I think they decided, they're probably going to be fantastic co-parents, but they just weren't really in the same headspace for that love to grow.
And wasn't it Madison who said on their wedding day when she called it off, I deserve to have somebody who loves me, who looks at me a certain way. And she's completely right. She shouldn't be entering into that relationship if the person is never going to love her back the way that she loves them.
I'm glad they had it be her that called it off.
Same.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. Same. Too.
It's interesting. We really haven't seen a lot of Kevin's projection, like what's going to happen, his trajectory. We've seen him with the kids in the little flashback scenes at the end of or flash forward scenes at the end of the seasons, but we haven't seen much else. I think we've gotten a little bit more of Kate, but even still, we haven't seen Kate past a certain point yet. We have a little bit more of Randall, but we haven't really seen too much. It's interesting to see what we know and what we don't know, and I'm curious to see how it'll continue to play out in season 6.
Yeah, because we've seen Kevin with a wedding ring on at Rebecca's deathbed, and he's kind of got that silver fox thing happening. But that's it. We don't know what he's doing. We don't know. We know that he finished this beautiful house for Rebecca and the family. And Kate, we don't know anything past the 5 years at her wedding day, or second wedding day. Right. So Kate's still a complete mystery. Kevin's almost as much.
Yeah.
We've seen that at least from appearances, Kevin is sorted out. He's got his life together at this point. We know a lot more about Randall and his family than any of the others. And Kate, nothing. We don't know anything beyond that flash forward at the end of this season where she's in a wedding dress getting ready to marry someone superior.
Yep.
And we've seen Jack and Haley in the future.
Yes,
we have.
So which is far beyond Rebecca's deathbed by the looks of things, because Nikki and Franny are only about 7 or 8. In that final at Rebecca's deathbed flash forward, so we haven't seen Jack and Haley or Kate at that point yet either.
No.
Yeah, because we've seen adult Jack and Haley.
Yes.
We've seen Jack have a kid.
Yes.
Yeah, and Jack's very successful.
Yes.
I'm still waiting for the big green egg grill to make a comeback.
Same.
Yeah.
Green Egg Grill?
Yeah, the big green egg.
Oh, Kylie, you
I'm
might have to edit
blanking
that.
out.
That might be season 6.
Is that season 6 though?
No, that's season 5. We haven't.
I think it
I
was
thought it was
mentioned
5.
in season 5.
We haven't seen Future Jack in season 6, have we?
I don't think
No.
so. I think it was
I think
5.
that's the end of season 5.
If I'm wrong, feel free to edit me out.
The other thing you'll notice is we've seen kitchens in every single house. Kate, Randall, Kevin, not one damn crock pot. Just saying, they learned.
Can't
Think
blame
of the
them.
air fryers. Think about air fryers.
Air fryers. Less flammable than used crock pots, I guess.
So what are some predictions or desires about who Kevin ends up with? I know mine personally. I'm still hoping that him and Sophie get back together and work it out. That's my personal desire. But obviously, there's some things without going into season 6. We already know a little bit. But what do you guys think, desire, hope for Kevin going forward in terms of his relationship?
Logistically, I don't think it's going to be Sophie because that actress is busy filming her own TV show for Netflix in Canada. So logistically, I don't see her coming back to the show anytime soon.
Virgin River?
And that would have been contracted as well. The thing there is that they wrapped that storyline fairly effectively in season 5. It would be very, very odd for them to end up together. It would be a real forced about face, it feels like.
They would have to make a lot of strides in season 6 to make that work.
Okay, well, I'm learning once again. I always learn every podcast. I learn something, so might as well learn.
Well, I mean, we're not saying that you're wrong.
No.
Just that a lot of work would have to go into it.
The chances are small.
Except the show
Ask my wife.
this many times.
I can be wrong. I just asked my wife. I can be wrong. No, I don't mind being wrong. I guess there's so much history there, and he doesn't have anybody. And the person currently, like what's her name with Nikki there, she seems good, but she's very different. Which is maybe what he needs. But
M had nose for a while. M.
The grill is from season 6.
Okay.
No grill talk. Stop this grill nonsense. I don't know what you're talking about.
I thought so. I was going to say something, but I didn't want to.
Oh,
I thought it was mentioned in 5. My bad.
I thought it was too, like at the very end of the season. I thought it was.
It might have been. I was gonna say it might have been, but I was just looking at the episode breakdown
definitely
in season
6.
6, and it definitely talks about it in 6.
Okay, now that's what I was asking.
I got a lot of editing to do. Okay.
Stepping back into the Kevin relationship thing and the ex-military alcoholic girl that I can't remember her name either, which is
Jennifer Morrison.
Yeah, I want to call her Zoe, but that's not Zoe.
Zoe is the cousin.
Oh, so
of
Cassidy.
It's Cassidy.
Cassidy. So, of all of the relationships we've seen Kevin in, theirs is the most natural chemistry. Now, I'm not saying I hope that's where it ends up. If it does, it feels a little telegraphed to me because of the natural chemistry they have. I kind of want to say I think he's going to end up with someone we haven't even seen yet.
I'm with Spencer. I think each relationship that Kevin has had has taught him more about what it is to be in the right kind of relationship and about what is not good or healthy about such a relationship. And I think he's going to happen. We keep getting his fantasy about meeting his soulmate and all this business more than any of the other children. He has done that. And so I have a feeling that we have yet to meet that person, but he's not going to over-romanticize them the way he has all of the other ones.
It's not going to be a John Legend episode.
Correct.
I think Cassidy's a red herring. I think it's
I don't know, though, what I think about that, though, because, to be honest with you, there's not enough episodes left for them to really... She's not going to be that significant. I mean, she'll be significant, and they always do it beautifully, but I feel like there should be a few extra episodes dedicated to that relationship. Then all of a sudden he ends up with somebody totally new. That's a little bit disappointing to me, but at the same time I totally get the idea that he ends up with the right person in the end. I don't need to know the story that thoroughly, but still it's too bad because I like to what's the word I'm looking for? I like to get invested in the characters more, so to not get to know somebody is a little bit disappointing, but in the end, it doesn't. Maybe she doesn't matter.
Well, I think with Kevin, though, if you've been investing in his relationships, you've been wasting time.
Not the relationship. Every character.
I mean, he has struggled with this, and I think I don't know that I need to know exactly who he ends up with, unless it is somebody we've met from the past. Then I think maybe the writers would owe us that. But if it's somebody totally new, I don't know that we need to spend time on them. I think Laurel's whole backstory was told in one episode too, so that's very possible they could tell that whole story in one episode. I don't know. All things are possible.
It is still very possible that he and Cassidy end up together, and that would be the twist, because they've made it like, oh, this is the obvious, so it isn't, and then surprise us with the fact that it really is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and even they've both agreed up until this point, this is not more than it is, and it's of convenience, and I don't know. But at the same time, he does really gravitate toward that little unit of Cassidy and Uncle Nicky.
Yes, which I adore, that little unit.
I love it. I love that the kids are named after him.
I love that he shows up for the wedding or whatever it is when it's supposed to be on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, the baptism.
Talk about the
baptism, yeah.
So,
Kristen, be careful. I think you're thinking of something in season 6.
I think you
I
are
think
too.
you're thinking of something in season 6, so be careful what you say.
I don't think I am.
I think you are.
I think I checked this in the season 5 Wikipedia.
Give us just like a hint so we can make sure.
Okay. Gifts.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
Oh!
I knew exactly where you were going.
This is season 5, if you're talking about the gifts he wants to give.
I saw.
May I say my thing now?
Yeah.
I saw.
Yeah. Okay, so when Nicky plans to go to the christening in person, and he makes individual snow globes for the twins, and you watch the entire process and the focus and the intricacy that he put into each of those snow globes, and when he had to take them out at TSA at the airport, I think I shouted no at the television.
Yeah.
I know that I have gotten so emotionally angry at anybody that did not exist in real life in a very, very long time.
That was one of the most heartbreaking things I think I've ever watched.
It was
I wept.
such an impactful moment. That episode, I remember saying afterwards, "That's it? It's over?" Because I was so worked up from that moment on, I don't think I realized what even happened after that. It was just the fact that those gifts had to be thrown away.
It was brutal.
And then
I was like, you can fix them, you can save them, it's okay. Just give
Can you just take the water out of them and it'll be fine?
Yeah.
The beautiful moment that comes from that, though, is he replaces the gifts with John Grisham books that he bought at the airport bookstore. But tucked into it is the picture of Jack and Nicky as young kids, basically, that Kevin later discovers. And I have to compliment the show again for casting Michael Angelano as the young Nicky and Griffin Dunn as the older Nicky. They're both so fantastic.
So good.
That
I would say that Griffin is probably one of the best castings of the series. He is perfect.
I would add Michael to that too, though. I think he has, in some ways, he's got a springboard what Griffin needs to then take in, and we know Griffin can act. Michael Angelano has been in a bunch of teen stuff. He was Jack's kid on Will and Grace. He's got a little bit of a portfolio. I never knew he had this depth. And then to play such a tortured character who's tortured before he goes to Vietnam. Then he goes to Vietnam and it just compounds it. I mean, it's just, the two of them are so, every time they tell a Nicky story, I'm riveted.
Mm-hmm. We haven't even talked about Nicky's story of season 5.
Which is?
About how we meet his love. We meet Sally. That was also heartbreaking. Yeah. I was so excited for him and so happy for him, and then to watch that all unfurl, and I was so sad.
I said it before last season, but Nicky reminds me of my uncle. I said it, but my Uncle Tom reminds me of Nicky, because my Uncle Tom was in Vietnam as well. He had issues before and issues after. The way he looks, his mannerisms, his nervousness, all that kind of stuff is just like my uncle. So it makes it even all that more emotional for me. And then, I also have an interracial relationship within my family that's beautiful. One of my other uncles on the same side of the family, so it's all very personal. So
that just goes to show you how relatable This Is Us really is, which is full circle to what I said when we were talking about reality versus escapism.
This feels like a hybrid in a way, that you're escaping into somebody else's reality. It really feels like the story is genuine, and that is where it differs from most TV that we watch, is that those you can see the writing. This, you feel the writing because it feels real.
So I'm going to jump in now and say something interesting after you just said that, Spencer. I think we can talk about this because it's already out there currently. The idea that they are considering creating a movie, right? Of This Is Us after the series is over. I definitely heard they're considering doing a movie, but the movie. So this is just what I've heard. I mean, I definitely have read that there's a serious consideration for a movie, but the storyline that has been hinted out there that I've read about was the idea of what if Jack didn't actually die. I won't go any further than that, but I'm just saying it's interesting, as Spencer mentioned, about a little bit alternate reality, but if they did that, I'm really curious to see what that movie might be like. Totally different topic, but I thought I'd throw that out there.
I have heard or read nothing to this effect.
Me neither.
And
I just did a quick Google search and nothing comes up either.
Well, I 100%
found it.
I 100% heard it. Yeah, I 100% heard it at least a couple of times.
Emily found it.
So, back on February 11th, Dan Fogelman was asked about the possibility of revisiting the NBC hit in the future in some way. He said, "I say no to nothing. If we can figure out a movie and can get together with the cast again in a few years, I'd love to. I don't know what it would be because we close out our story in the season finale, or series finale."
I did hear more after that as well.
That's
There's probably more. We'll have to look into it more, but I know I read what you read too, Emily, and then I said, well, I say that kind of stuff all the time.
Yeah, that quote that Jared's referring to, it's in the same article, Emily. It's just further down. It's from Variety, from, like she said, from February 11th of this year.
There's more to it, I think.
All he said is that, Fogelman, it depends on if everybody's available. Everybody, all the actors are going to be really busy, obviously, in the years to come. People have already gotten job offers. They've lined up their next projects already. But he said, he pitched an idea for a movie based around, quote, what would happen if Jack survived the fire. Moments later, Fogelman revealed that the president of NBC, was literally texting me right now saying yes to the movie. I don't know if it's hard because the story isn't written that well. The article isn't written that well. So it's hard to know if this is like a joke or if it's just a hypothetical. It's really hard to take the quote as it is.
I feel if they did that, it would take a very similar pathway that Downton Abbey did.
I was just going to say that.
I don't feel it would. It doesn't work. With the Downton Abbey, it just feels like a money grab. And I think that would be exactly the same. When you've had something so perfectly done, to revisit it because you've got a lot of fans out there just to get bums in seats, they're going to pay you $20. I think it would have a very negative impact on the legacy of the show.
We've explored the idea of what if Jack survived a little bit as well in a couple of episodes with Kate, Randall, and Kevin, especially at the cabin, having some conversations as their adult selves with their iteration of Jack, which I think is an interesting concept. But I feel like if you take it, I feel like his death played so strongly into the people that they are today and the person that Rebecca is today. I don't know if it would work to tell the story with him surviving the fire.
I don't know how it would work, but generally the higher-ups don't just jump out there and say, yes, I want to do it. Usually there's a lot of hush-hush about things like this.
Okay, little more context for this whole thing here. It was done. These quotes were taken from the show's final panel at the Television Critics Association. I don't know. It just says the Television Critics Association. So this was done as a panel with Fogelman and most of, but not all of, the lead actors from the show.
There was probably
so what he did. Yeah. So what Fogelman did is that he kind of pitched the idea, like, if we were going to get back into it, we could try something like this. And he just pitched it to the audience panel that was there, the reporter panel that was there. And
in response to a question, right?
In response to a question of, what would you do? And so I'm thinking he more kind of meant it as a joke, like, yes, they're texting me, let's do it. But I think it's more just, it just shows the popularity of the show, that people still want it. I don't take this as this is fact, this is not happening. It's just Fogelman having fun at a panel with his cast, and
he got
again,
asked the
just
question,
never
he had
say
to come
never.
up with something to say.
Yeah.
I don't feel like this show and the creators feel very much like money grabbing, like Downton Abbey has now since the show's ended. Like with all of the museum exhibits and the movies and all of that stuff, I don't feel like This Is Us would go on that path. So I feel like a movie would be cool. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I don't feel like they're going to go down that path.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think they're telling an encapsulated story. The difference between a This Is Us and a Downton is that Downton is a period piece, and it told part of its history, and so they had room to go into the movies, even if we needed to see the story or not. And let's just face it, we're all watching the Downton movies, even if we think it's a money grab, right? But This Is Us, I think, is so intrinsically dependent upon the encapsulation of its story that I tend to agree this is probably a recapitulation of the TCA upfronts in the winter. So they have two major events in the spring and in the winter ahead of whatever term or set of months we're about to see, where they're going to launch new TV seasons or air new pilots. They talk about things, and they'll bring on some of the flagships like This Is Us. That's NBC's big show right now. And that probably was a question, like Spencer said. Hey, what did you ever think about doing this for This Is Us? And then Dan, being Dan, answered the way he did. If they made a movie, I'd watch it. I don't think they should make a movie, though.
No, I found another article kind of fleshing out a little bit more of the other one. And it was the same thing. Somebody asked the question, like, it's the whole 6 seasons in a movie? ? And, again, he just kind of said, if we could figure out something to do, maybe. But realistically, we have told the complete story of this family. Yeah. And so he just said, I'm not sure. And then that's when he instantly kind of brainstormed, well, maybe this is the only thing we could explore, because we've told everything else.
And I don't really want to see an alternate history
No.
projection.
No, it would cheapen the show.
Yeah.
It would cheapen it.
The whole point of the show is how they cope with... I mean, that's the very first twist of the whole show, is you're watching this and, oh, by the way, he's dead. So...
Yep. And you know it'll happen, but you don't know when and you don't know how.
Correct.
For a very long time.
So I just don't think that, I think that's just a TCA kind of event thing.
Yeah.
Well, I sure hope that something comes out of this, because then I'm looking for the next fix. I mean, I'm addicted, so I'm looking for the next fix.
Well, we're still actively in season 6, the one that certain moderators have not watched a penny of yet. So this is the question, since we're in a penultimate place. The season 5 is officially the penultimate season. So I canned the recommendation question. We're not going to answer that. That's neither here nor there, because it's got one more season. We all know it. We'll come back to the recommendation question after that season. Some of you have watched this season and are up to date, so I need you to kind of think through things and not spoil anything. But since it has been announced that season 6 is the last one, how do you hope it will all end, and what do you hope to find out? In other words, what predictions do you have for the final... Let's say the final moments of the final season, because I don't want to know nothing that's happened so far.
It's a hard question to answer, because they've kind of indicated where it ends. I feel like it ends at Rebecca's final moments. And I'm okay with that, because they've prepared us for it. I think it's going to be a very beautiful moment, and there's going to be tears from everybody on this panel, at least. And most of the fans of this show. The only fear I possibly have is that Fogelman tries to one-up the Sopranos ending and just leave us going, no, what just happened?
If this goes to black, I'll be like, first of all, you're copying that Sopranos dude. And second of all...
Oh, no, one-up it, that's what he'll do.
Bad man. Don't do that.
We will send Will Smith to your house.
Oh, no. He's too busy.
For 2 slaps instead of 1.
He's been too busy being investigated. Anyway, we know that, yes, that is probably the final moments, but What about the moments before the final moments, Mr.
I
Literal?
could see Rebecca having a vision of Jack on her deathbed. That's something that is apparently pretty common, is when you're in those final moments, you can see family members and people close to you that have passed on. So maybe that could be the reason why Nikki is also sitting right there at her deathbed. Maybe Rebecca thinks that it's Jack because they are brothers. They look similar. I think I feel, I don't know, I just have this feeling like we're going to see Jack somewhere within those final moments of Rebecca, whether it's through a picture or they're talking about him, but I just have a strong feeling that we're going to see our buddy Milo in some sort of physical form in those final moments.
Who also is attractive, by the way. I didn't say that yet this episode. I spend a little too much time on Justin. Milo is my first love. Okay, continue.
I want to see them tie up some more of these things that they've kind of like seem like significant things that they've dropped throughout the seasons, like the farmhouse, or like even in season 5 when we see the family of the guy that invents the way that you share videos. Like that was just kind of dropped in there, and it seems like it might be more significant than just being the inventor of sharing data across devices. So I'm curious to see if that's going to play out in anything. And I'm just kind of I'm really interested to see how everybody's story kind of gets wrapped up, knowing that Fogelman is saying, like, we've told their stories. So these stories must be getting wrapped up in a really nice, neat bow. Otherwise, you could do, like, a spin-off of here's Justin Hartley's family, here's Kevin's family, or whatever. So I'm really curious to see how that whole nice package gets wrapped up.
Yeah, I'd also like to see adult Nikki and Franny at some point, because we've seen, you know, adult Haley as well as Jack, you know, adult Jack Jr. and his wife. I think it'd be appropriate to see the new big three, as Kate has dubbed them. You know, why not?
We've also briefly seen adult Tess and adult Deja. And I think adult Annie a little bit.
We've seen all of them.
I think a prediction of mine is that we will see a coming together of the family, and it will be done in a very meaningful and poignant way that will make us go, of course that's how it would happen. Jack's presence is everywhere. I mean, considering where they are, they're in the house that he designed. I mean, that's been revealed at this point. I would think we might see a passing of the torch, like Kristen L. said, to the next big three, because I feel like with Jack and Rebecca's lives being wrapped up, that part of the story is told. But I think that these writers would intimate the fact that life continues. It goes on. It goes on to the next generation.
And the circles that they've shown all the way throughout, with the points through each iteration and each generation, there is repeats. I think they'll lean to that a little bit, but I don't think they will give us an obvious, this is how it continues. It will slowly draw to a close, but in a poignant way.
Yeah, I also want to see.
There's going to have to be.
Go ahead.
There's going to have to be a reference, because we've seen adult Jack and Haley. That's got to come back around somehow, because they wouldn't just throw that out there just because too. So I'm sure we're going to see something, kind of another jump in the future about that too.
I'd also like to see who ends up with Rebecca's crescent moon necklace that she got from Jack. We haven't seen that make an appearance, a very specialized appearance, in a while. And I feel like that's going to be kind of a moment of, she wanted you to have this, and finding out who the you might be, if that's the case. I feel like they spent so much time on that necklace. It was a big part of the reveal in season 1 that I feel like they need to come back and revisit that as well.
Two things for me. I am an eternal optimist, and even in the moments where I acknowledge negativity, I still try to see the bright side in it. So Miguel, we don't know where he is. I'm hoping he didn't die. Maybe he did die. I'm hoping I almost foresee this thing where eventually Rebecca gets to the point where she doesn't want to burden Miguel anymore, and so somehow she asks them to separate. Maybe that won't happen, but what happens to Miguel? He's not there. Hopefully it's good and handled well that way. And the last thing is regarding Philip and Kate. I feel like I'm really going to struggle to have a pure appreciation for their relationship with as little episodes left. But as the kind of person that I am, I can always appreciate the fact that when somebody is in a different position. I wish them the best, and I hope that it is as good as it's supposed to be, as wonderful and better, than it's supposed to be. But those are the kind of things I'm thinking about. How am I gonna warm up to Philip, and then what happened to Miguel?
What about Miguel's kids?
We haven't seen them in ages.
Like, their stepmother is dying, and they're nowhere to be found.
But they haven't been. They
haven't been. But I don't know. I just feel like that's kind of strange. We haven't really seen his kids at all in any capacity.
No, and not intermingling with the Pearson kids. Mm-mm. We haven't seen any of that.
No.
I think that we will see a version of Kate that we haven't seen, and there's a deliberate omission in the flash forward so far, that we'll see a very different Kate in the end, a happier Kate, and most likely a slimmer Kate.
I think Kate is going to be the last flash forward reveal. I think she's going to be the last one that they show arriving. They're going to save that until the end because it's become such a question of interest. Well, where's Kate? Why haven't we seen Kate yet? We've seen mostly everybody else. I think they're going to save her reveal for the end.
So has she been very social media silent in terms of like not about the show, but even about herself? Because obviously there was this talk about how she's supposed to lose all this weight and kind of thing. Has she really been able to hide herself? Because I think I've seen social media.
No, I don't. I think we talked about this
out there
before. I don't think that that's part of her contract anymore.
Oh, I think they abandoned that a while ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's pictures out there. She has lost a lot of weight.
She has lost weight, yes.
And I just saw an article flash through my news feed today about, I don't remember which magazine it was or which periodical or website, but about how Chrissy Metz was talking about coming to terms with her own sense of identity and her own body image through the journey of playing Kate. So I think that her commentary is out there. I do think they've adjusted it a little bit, but I think she was intended to have much more of a dramatic weight loss than maybe she has had. Either way, I think this big reveal is probably going to be something of a Weight Watchers kind of dramatic entrance for her. I don't really have any specific predictions, which is somewhat weird because I love to make them, and that's why I asked the question. If this was a Game of Thrones or a Lost or a Stranger Things or something like that, I'd be all over the predictions. But the thing about This Is Us is that more than any of those other shows, and maybe this was the tack we should have taken with the other shows, the journey is the key here. More so than the destination. I think that's what we've been saying all along. It's as Emily put it, they had it all storyboarded. They did this thing and threw it against the wall and all over the room, and then they presented it to us, and that journey has been so amazing and so unique to the show that I don't know that I demand a particular punchline or need to see a particular end. I need some explanations for what I've seen up until this point, like Kate and Philip. But in the end, I think I'm just gonna, if they bring me to a nice, easy coast into the landing pad on the roller coaster, then I will think it was the most satisfying ride I've seen in a long time on television from an avid TV watcher. Again, no hyperbole. So, panel, this is so funny. Are you going to keep watching?
Absolutely.
Since many of them already have been, and only I've been just waiting.
Was there even a question?
Well, I have to ask you. It's tradition.
There is actually a profound sadness at the end of each episode of episode 6, knowing that I'm that much closer to the end of what I truly believe is the best written show I've ever watched.
I'm in agreement.
Wow. Wow. Well, I have to say wow after Spencer's because he's stingier than me. So if
he's stingier than all of us.
I was just going to put it on me, but says the dynamic.
I hope they're still talking about, the giving of compliments to TV writing.
Yes, we are.
That's it. That's all we're talking about.
I don't throw that around lightly.
No, I know you don't.
I don't watch anywhere near as much now as I used to, but I have watched an enormous amount of procedurals and TV in general, and I cannot recall ever seeing anything that is able to constantly surprise me, that has actually made me well up. I'm not a person that cries easily, and this show has made me well up. It is just such a beautifully written story. Mm-hmm. And I think that's because it dwells in the realm of reality in a way without being a reality TV show, but a genuine, heartfelt story that draws from our own true emotions. I'm not sure we'll see anything like this again without it feeling like it's a poor copy of what we've been watching.
I was just joking, you know.
Oh, I know.
Well, that was such a lovely sentiment. At this point, though, I do need to ask, is there anything, did you get all your feels out? Is there anything else you want to talk about related to season 5 of This Is Us?
You know, we really didn't talk about Randall that much, but Randall is Randall, and Randall is awesome.
Oh, we didn't talk about the dance. Is that 5?
Yeah.
The dance? I won't do it myself, but it was very interesting.
I think we talked about Randall in terms of some of the episodes, but almost Randall has been so much of a focus all the way up and through. In season 5, I think he was still part of the focus, but he was a little bit more receded. It was a little bit more interwoven into the story because it was now about him. He was coming to terms with things, and he was trying to get the rest of the family to come to terms with things as well. I still think he's my favorite character.
Me too.
And Sterling Brown is just so great. And whoever said that Randall and Beth are the best couple, yes.
Yes.
That family is a joy to watch. I love them both. I love all the kids. I think they also feel very real. And I said this in the last recording. They are the parents on the block whose house you'd want to go to when you were a kid because they were cool and they'd let you do some stuff, but not all the stuff so as to piss off your parents.
Felicia Rashad. She was a great... I loved her as Beth's mother. She was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Great. I have one final thought to leave people with. How Mandy Moore does not have an Emmy for this role yet, and if she doesn't end up with an Emmy for this role, there is severe injustice in the people that do the voting for this.
I bet it's coming. I bet they're going to make a big Emmys push for her once season 6 is completed, because this is going to be her toughest season yet. And I think she's going to get rewarded for it.
She deserves it. She's not just the pop tartlet we once knew. She has acting chops.
She's great.
I like that one. I'm going to use it.
Okay. You don't even need to credit me.
Thank you.
Yes, Mandy Moore is amazing. The whole cast, there really is not a weak link. At least not in the adult cast. I think this is a lot of very heavy material. Even the comedy is heavy at times, and it's just amazing how well they're willing to execute it. And they function very seamlessly as an ensemble, which I think is something that we've been talking about, the writing and just how brilliant all of the direction and planning is. But the ensemble as it works together is also quite amazing. You don't often see that. There's usually somebody who stands out as like, oh, are you supposed to be there? That's not the case here.
No.
Anything else that you want to say about season 5? Oh, they learned their lesson and they got quiet. Well, I think it's because we talked about as much of season 5 as we can possibly remember with the amount of waking hours we have left in this day. And so, what I'd like to do at this time is thank Kristen L. and Kristen T. and Emily and Jared and Spencer for joining me to talk about season 5 of This Is Us. But we're not through with this water cooler series yet. There's one more season, which we'll talk about later, but now we have to roll some credits. Couch Potatoes Unite! ! Was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, Take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we have new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast, Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point. Until the next time, all available seasons of This Is Us are available to stream on Hulu. That includes the current season. They usually put it up on Hulu. In the meantime, our This Is Us panel will next reconvene to digest the now final season of the beloved drama, Season 6, and to look back at the whole show after its official end, sometime after the series finale airs, which will be later this spring. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.